Hello and welcome. In this short advice I would like to show you how to create null-safe code when working with unset data in a Java Bean or some API that you are using, which may return a null reference. It will be an easy to read one-liner at the end. In the early days of Java, over 20 years ago, the programming language was relatively easy to pick up when you had a background in C++. In C++, you have the concept of pointers, which can, for example, point to an instance of a class that you created. The zero pointer in C++ is similar to the idea of building null into the Java language. This built-in literal can be assigned to variables to represent the fact that it has no destination and does not point to an instance of an object yet. If you call a method of the type of a variable that holds null at this point, a null pointer exception is raised. It is debatable whether it was a good idea to design the language this way, but since it is there, you have to check for unwanted null references before working with return values, for example. This leads to ugly code like the following. You call a certain method and assign the return value to a variable. In case the contract of the method contains null as a possible outcome, the next code line contains an if statement checking for null, and if that's the case, you either initialize the variable, raise an exception, or do something else instead. To prevent all this in the first place, you've got a few alternatives. Instead of intentionally returning a null reference from your method, you have, probably among others, two more options. First, you can return an empty or dummy instance instead. This is not always sensible, but in case your method should return a Java util list with some data in it, most of the time it's perfectly fine to return an empty list instead. For example, you can lazy initialize your list by adding the null check to your method that returns the list. Second, you can work with optional empty and return it. This way, the one who calls your method has to think about the fact whether the expected data is really present. This brings us to a possible solution with Java util optional. Again, if you are working with Java Beans or an API that for some reason you cannot change, you can use the following idiom, where you use Java util optional and package everything in the of nullable call, and in case it is null, you use the or else get method to initialize your data. If you then continue to work with that list, for example, by using the Java streaming API, the stream of elements simply is empty and just nothing will happen on that occasion. If the list is not null, the optional container will just return that list and the or else get method will not construct a new list. By making use of Java util optional in that case, you can declutter your code and avoid checking for null references all the time, even when it is a valid return value in the contract of the API you are working with. Thank you for watching this video. In case you liked it, give it a thumbs up, and if you did not like it, a thumbs down. Either way, please let me know in the comments what you think. If you do not want to miss any future videos, simply subscribe to the channel and activate the bell to get notifications when a new video is published.